get out. So we dry it on a towel, and then we stretch. The stretching helps it to conform, and then we wrap it around the finger. Overlap in a diagonal about 50% of the layer underneath. When you get to the end, we don't put it like this. We make sure that that corner is stuck on the material. Spend a little bit of time smoothing all the layers together so it's impossible to open it. And then you can put the patient in maximum extension or flexion, whatever position you want. We'll let it harden for about 20 seconds. It should be hard. And then I will demonstrate how to put the straps even when it's wet. Do you want to translate?
Debbie, what I'm doing right now is to write down a little bit of what you are saying, you know, by chat. So keep going. Don't worry about that. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's already hard, and all the layers are firmly smoothed together, so it's almost impossible to see the different layers, which means it will not, the patient will not be able to unwrap it, which is good. So we can slide it off. It's also possible with tiny scissors. If you needed to remove it, it is possible with tiny scissors to cut it off slowly and carefully so you don't cut the patient, and you can remove it in this manner. I'm going to add straps. So I'm actually going to cut a little bit away. So that I can make it tighter. In order to add straps, I will take a piece of the fuzzy loop strap and a piece of hook with the glue behind it. And this I'm going to put on not the fuzzy side, but on the back side. In this way, I make my own strap that closes. And this is actually 2. So I'm going to cut this into 2 straps. One will go proximal to the PIP and one will go distal. We just want to make sure you don't have any sharp corners. So we'll trim all the corners away. In order to get the straps to stick, we're going to use the heat gun. Very carefully to use the heat gun to make the material sticky. Just a little bit of the heat gun. When it turns dark in color, it's sticky. And we can make this stick. I will do one there. And another one more distal. Let's get that out of the way. Okay, so they have stuck. Now I just recommend reinforcing the very edge with a tiny piece of extra Orficast, which will heat up with the heat gun. So you can hold it with your scissors, heat it up till it's sticky, and then just go over the edge to really secure that so it doesn't come apart. We'll do the other one as well. I'm just reinforcing the edge of my hook and loop. And so now, even though this is still very wet, I have straps. 1, 2. The PIP joint should be in the middle. Okay, I see there's lots of questions, so.
No, there are no questions. We are translating by chat
okay.
what you're talking about. So.
Okay. So the main thing is that straps can be applied to the Orficast when it is wet by using the heat, the dry heat from the heat gun, and by reinforcing the edges. Here I've done it in, I have one where I did it in orange, a different color, so you can really see it well. So the orange is the reinforcement, orange Orficast, just to show the reinforcement. And you can make this orthosis without cutting it if your patient can slide it on and off, but often after a finger has been swollen and then the swelling is gone, you need to make it tighter. And so this is how you can make it tighter, by adding straps. So this is, we call this the finger extension wrap, because we are taking the material and wrapping it around the finger. I'm going to show another method for making it with no wrap, just by using the 6 centimeter wide material. Orficast comes in 3 centimeters and 6 centimeters. So this is the wider version. And for this, we're just going to take a small rectangle. This is the same orthosis, just using a different material for the same purpose, keeping the PIP joint in extension, either after an acute injury or when you're trying to keep the finger straight after a contracture. It's the same splint, same design, just doing it with a different material. So we'll heat that up. It also takes about 30 to 40 seconds in the hot water. We'll take it out. We pat it dry and then stretch. Stretching will help it conform. I'm going to fold it in half and then stretch it around my finger and pinch it together on the dorsum of the finger, and then make a seam. And then while you are pulling it away from your patient, you can cut carefully so you don't cut yourself or your patient. And now you have one with not overlap, but just a seam on the dorsum, or you could do the seam on the side, wherever is more comfortable. This gets hard, and then you can slide it on and off. I just like to cut those little corners away. If you didn't get a good seal, all you have to do is heat it up with the heat gun. And it will stick back together. Okay, that is our first orthosis for PIP extension. You can make it with the 6 centimeter. You can make it with the 3 centimeter. You can put straps on it, or you can leave it as a slide on and off splint.
Okay.
Are there any questions about that?
Ok, Debbie, muchas gracias. Bueno, acabamos de ver la órtesis para extensión de dedo y la elaboró de dos maneras. Una con Orficast de 3 centímetros, donde usó velcros para ajustar, o también, y también elaboró esta misma órtesis para extensión de dedos con Orficast de 6 centímetros sin velcro. ¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta que por favor nos la pueda hacer por medio del chat acerca de esta férula? Les recuerdo que a través del chat estamos haciendo unas pequeñas traducciones con el objetivo de no entorpecer la demostración de Debbie y no ponernos a traducir pues en cada momento. Pero si alguien tiene una pregunta, es el momento de hacerla acerca de esta férula. Debbie, I don't think we have a question about that one. So if you
Okay,
go ahead
good.
with the second one. Okay. Okay, hold just 1 second. There is a question.
Okay.
When it gets hard, the second way that you were showing us, it shows that it's most difficult to, to put it in the finger.
No.
What tip would you recommend to avoid it?
To avoid making it too tight?
Yes.
I pinched it really, really tight on my finger because I waited. So the material sticks really well to itself when it's hot. And the longer you wait, you have to pinch it tighter and tighter. So because I was talking and it was already getting a little hard, I was pinching it really, really close to my finger. If they noticed, if I was doing it, I wouldn't pinch it so close. That's why this one is a little bit tight. And this one, which I made previously, is light, nice and loose because I pinched it too close.
Okay.
Because I was taking too long to explain.
Ok, perfecto. Lo que está diciendo Debbie es que cuando la estaba elaborando, pues como estaba hablando, la apretó bastante, por eso quedó bien pegada a la piel, pero si nos damos cuenta, la segunda, la que está mostrando actualmente, queda más, digamos que queda más justa, queda más luz, más suelta. Entonces es cuestión de darle la presión que se le tiene que dar para que no quede tan ajustada y pues obviamente se pueda introducir el dedo de una manera rápida. Okay.
Okay, so we're going on to the next orthosis, which is the figure of 8 or anti-swan neck. That is when there is hyperextension at the PIP joint. And what we want to do is put it in a little bit of flexion to prevent hyperextension. So it actually keeps the finger in about 10 to 15 degrees of PIP flexion in order to prevent hyperextension.
Ok, vamos a iniciar con la órtesis para dedo en cuello de cisne.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Just 1 second. Todas estas preguntas que no estamos respondiendo, no se preocupen, póngalas ahí en el chat que al final del webinar las vamos a responder una por una. Gracias. Okay, go ahead, Debbie. Thank
okay. You. I also want to show a different way to make this in a slightly elongated fashion. And this is for the thumb when we have hyperextension at the MP joint. The same kind of design can keep the MP joint from hyperextending. So I'm going to show both of these designs using the Orficast 3 centimeters. And we only need about maybe 15 centimeter length, but instead of folding it, I'm going to roll it into a tube so it's thin. So let me heat it up. Sometimes when I'm demonstrating, I talk too much and then my material actually is hard and I need to make it. So sometimes I have to go back and reheat it or work very fast. Okay, so We pat it dry, we stretch it, and then I'm going to roll it into a tube. So it's very thin tube. And starting at the PIP joint, we're going to make an oval around the flexed PIP joint, starting at the PIP on this side, and then slipping it underneath and ending at the PIP on that side. All we have to do here is trim. And you just want to keep the finger in flexion until it is hard. So you just wait, you have your patient sit with their finger in flexion until it gets hard. If they extend, they'll stretch the material if it's still warm. So once it's hard, you can take it off and check your pinch here and your pinch there to make sure they're secure. And that's a figure of 8. One side, one opening is going to be a little bit bigger. So that's the side the patient's finger goes in, and that's the orthosis. Very quick, very easy. You could actually wear multiple of these at one time in case your patient needed all 4 fingers. They do not get in each other's way. Very comfortable. You can get these wet. Patient could wash their hands. It's not going to change the shape or size of the orthosis. Is there a question about this?
No, not yet,
questions.
Debbie. No
Okay.
questions. Anyway, yeah. Anyhow, we have other questions, but I said to everybody that we are going to answer them as soon as you finish the webinar.
Okay. Okay. So I will demonstrate the orthosis now for the thumb. It's really the same type of design where we make an oval over the first metacarpal and the proximal phalanx, starting at the MCP joint, oval, and then go under the MCP joint. So it will look like this, oval, and then under. So we'll take a piece slightly longer than what we had before. And we'll heat this up in the hot water. And when we take it out, we're going to pat it dry and roll and stretch. And so for me, when I'm doing this on myself, I have to kind of estimate the size of my oval and form it off my thumb because I only have the one hand. So this is the size of the oval, and this slip will go underneath and come out on the other side. So, and then I'll just hold myself in flexion, MCP flexion, until it's hard. You can trim this already. So pinch here, pinch there, and just make sure you're in flexion in order to prevent hyperextension. Just let that harden. And then I want to show a couple of tricks to keeping it against the wrist. So I'm just going to take this off and let it harden on my table. See how similar they are? And there are several ways you can make this stay on the patient's hand, because it sometimes when they're using it, it bounces against their wrist. So if you don't want that to happen, see, I have a little bit of hyperextension there as well. So when I wear this, it really keeps me from doing that. And then you can make a little bracelet out of the Orficast, which hooks around. And that can keep the orthosis in place against the wrist, or that's one option. Or you can attach elastic, stretchy elastic, and the patient can just slide that on. So here it's not sewn. It's actually a little piece of Orficast has been placed underneath to secure it. So it's nice and snug. So those are just two ways that you can keep this against the wrist. So this is for the patient who has arthritis or hyperextension at the MCP joint, subluxing. They're stuck in this kind of thumb position, and you want to put them in a little bit of flexion so they're more comfortable with pinching as opposed to going like this. Okay. Any questions about these?
Debbie, yeah, how is the strength of the material? I mean,
How's
for
the
this type
strength?
of splint? Yeah.
It's a very, very, once it's hard, this one's already hard. It's depending on how thin you made the tube, it's fairly strong. And we're talking about one joint, supporting one joint. So you don't need it to be super, super, super rigid. It's
Okay.
enough. Yeah.
Let me translate. Le estaba preguntando qué tan resistente era el material para este tipo de férula, porque alguien nos estuvo preguntando esto hace unos minutos y Debbie nos comenta pues que evidentemente es como tú vayas haciendo la envoltura y qué tan resistente lo requiera. Sin embargo, pues obviamente es una férula pequeña, que no requiere mucha resistencia, entonces es perfecto para este tipo de férula.
And here is a modification for the patient who has a problem with IP joint hyperextension. So if their thumb is also hyperextending, you can actually add a little piece on the IP joint to block hyperextension. And I usually use a scrap, whatever I left over, to make this additional little ring. So it's the normal orthosis, and then we just added a little piece at the tip to prevent hyperextension of the thumb IP joint. So just a little adaptation.
Ok, sí. Lo que nos está contando es que se puede hacer una adaptación pequeña para las personas que sufren de hiperextensión. Entonces, de la manera que lo acabo de hacer, es muy fácil hacer esta pequeña adaptación.
Okay. Any questions?
Ok. De cualquier manera, este video lo vamos a traducir y lo vamos a enviar a todos sus correos. Las personas que se registraron por Zoom van a tener este video grabado con títulos en español para que lo puedan volver a ver. No tenemos, we don't have a question right now, so
Okay.
we'll go ahead with the next one. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay. The next one we had scheduled to do is a trigger finger orthosis. So for the trigger finger, I'll show you the finished orthosis. Blocks MCP flexion to stop the triggering under the A1 pulley. So how do we make this? There are several different ways you could do this. I'm going to take a piece of the Orficast. I'm concentrating mostly on Orficast 3 centimeters. We're going to heat this up. We're going to wrap it around the proximal phalanx of the finger, and then have it come into my hand at about the level of the distal palmar crease. I'm going to fold it back up and then back down. So there's 3 layers blocking MCP flexion and 1 layer around the phalanx. And that will make, there's 3 layers here. So we'll show how to do that. So if someone is, every time they flex, if they're triggering and their finger, we want to block MCP flexion.
Ok, estamos haciendo la órtesis para dedo en gatillo.
So we stretch the material. We're going to wrap it around the proximal phalanx and secure it. And then fold it so it comes into my palm at about this level. At the distal palmar crease, I'm going to fold it back up on itself. And then from the PIP, I'm going to fold it back down to make 3 layers. 3 layers in front. And then what I think you should do is put the finger in hyperextension. Hyperextension to really help to block MCP flexion. So we let it harden, and then we can slide it off and trim. So we're going to trim the corners and make sure everything is stuck together, and the patient can just slide it on. And when they go to make a fist, they can't make a tight fist. That finger is not coming all the way into flexion. But you have to check to make sure that they're not able to trigger. You might have to redo this in more hyperextension, or you might have to block the PIP joint. And you could do the block the PIP joint. Might be just as easy to do that for a trigger finger. This is what we made for the swan neck. So it could be keeping the finger in flexion, or if we turn it around, that also can stop triggering because it's not allowing the tendon of the flexor tendon to go all the way proximally underneath the A1 pulley. So either orthosis might help your patient with a trigger finger. You have to choose. Okay, there is another way to make this, and I will show that similar orthosis, similar to this with the 6 centimeter width. We're going to fold it in half after it's activated. I'll show another way to do the same orthosis. Just using, you have to use whatever material you have. So if you have the 6 centimeter, you should use 6 centimeter. If you have this 3 centimeter, you can use the 3 centimeter. Either will work. So we'll pat it dry. And then out of this material, I'm going to cut the letter T. Letter T. You have the letter T. Letter T. Okay. And we'll just put that in front of the finger. Pull this a little bit proximally. Keep the finger in hyperextension. And in the back, we could either cut it so it's slip-on or put straps there. Either way. So we'll just let this harden for a sec. So notice I'm putting the finger in hyperextension at the MCP joint to help with blocking flexion. So I'm just doing some trimming here, the corners. You don't want corners on your orthosis. And there, this blocks the same way. MCP flexion. Any questions about these orthoses? This one or this one?
Exacto. Debbie acabó de presentar varios modelos de una órtesis en gatillo, de dedo en gatillo. Si tienen alguna pregunta, vayan por favor indicándola por el chat. Como tenemos este limitante del idioma, para no entorpecer la demostración de Debbie, no, como les decimos, vamos a estar enviando este mismo video con subtítulos en español para que lo puedan ver en sus casas en los siguientes días. Okay, Debbie, go ahead.
No questions. Wow. Okay.
No, yeah, you know, there are no questions right now, so.
Okay. Another orthosis.
Yeah,
We're going to show the mallet orthosis. The mallet orthosis for when there is a blow or an injury to the extensor tendon at zone 1, and we need to put the finger in extension for 6 to 8 weeks in order for scarring, healing to take place, so that we can get extension at the tip and not have it droop. And so
okay.
this is.
I'm sorry. I need to stop you a little bit because Debbie va a iniciar a hacer una órtesis para dedo en martillo. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one, it's not hard to make this, but it's hard to get it to stay on the finger. So I'm going to show the best method to get it to stay on the finger is the strap. So the splint itself is easy to make, but it's important to know how to cut. So we take a piece about 10 to 15 centimeters long. We're going to heat it up. And we'll take it out. When you take it out, we pat it dry. I'm going to fold the material in half to make a double layer and stretch it slightly, and then put my finger in the middle, bring this towards the PIP, stretch this and bring it so you can see the fingertip. Stretch that and bring it also towards the PIP joint. Okay, so this is how we start our orthosis. That's what the volar surface looks like. That's what the dorsal surface looks like. We don't want it to go past the PIP, so I'm going to cut it. I'm also going to cut a lot of this off. I'll show you with a marker the trim lines. Because if you don't trim, I'm going to cut all this off. PIP joint. All that gets cut off so that my strap really holds it in place. So we cut. So it's just a dorsal based. Oops. On this side, we also cut. So very sharp cutting. And then at the PIP level. I want it just dorsal so that my strap goes around the middle phalanx to really hold it in place. You don't want any material on the side of the finger because then the splint just moves around. So we're keeping the splint fairly dorsal and the sides free. So now we have to put a strap on this. We're going to take a piece of Velcro. Same idea, the Velcro loop, fuzzy side, the Velcro hook. I'm going to put the hook on the back side of my loop. And in this case, we only need one strap. Only one. So I'm going to put this, attach this on top. So it goes around the middle phalanx. So I really don't even need all of this. And we're going to use the heat gun again. Till it gets dark blue. And we push it in. And then wrap it around the middle phalanx. And you can trim. This is just a more secure method for strapping, as opposed to putting a little piece of hook on the orthosis and doing Velcro on both sides. This is just a more secure way of strapping, because the strap goes all the way around the middle phalanx and then on top of the orthosis as well. So it's really, really snug. It can stay on. The patient can get their fingers wet. It's not going to come off. It's not going to change its shape. The only thing you might need to do is, once again, secure the edge with a tiny bit of scrap material or reinforcement. So I'm going to show how to do that. We'll just take our piece of scrap and just go over the edge, just on the edge, to secure the hook and loop. It doesn't even show that little bit of extra material, so the strap doesn't come off. So that is the mallet orthosis, the easiest way I know to make it. Any questions about that? Here I just have the orange Orficast reinforcing the strap, kind of showing better how you might have to reinforce it on both sides. But once again, it's nice and secure. It's not going to come off. Okay. Do a thumb orthosis out of the Orficast 2 inches. There are different ways to make the thumb orthosis, and I actually, are you selling the Orficast more? Wanna?
Yes.
Oh, because I like that thumb one. I like a lot better, but this is an option. If there's time, I can show that too. So
Yeah,
I'm going to show a way to.
I'm sorry, Debbie, what is the difference between Orficast more and Orficast?
The difference is the thickness. So Orficast more is a much thicker product. So it has many more threads of Orficast, many more threads, and it also comes in wider sizes. Orficast more. Do you have this in 15 centimeters?
Yes, ok. Le estaba preguntando a Debbie que cuál es la diferencia del Orficast More y el Orficast tradicional. Y ella nos dice que el Orficast More es uno de sus preferidos porque es más liviano y es más delgado. Entonces, la maniabilidad es un poquito más versátil, por decirlo así. Y además, con Orficast More tenemos también la posibilidad de hacer más férulas.
Sí, más grandes.
Férulas más grandes, exacto.
Okay, I'll show how to make this orthosis. This orthosis for the thumb is made out of Orficast 6 centimeter. But we have other orthoses that are out of the Orficast more. But since this talk is geared towards Orficast, I'll show how to do this one. And then at another time, we could do a program on Orficast more.
Ok, Debbie nos va a enseñar cómo hacer una órtesis para pulgar de 6 centímetros con Orficast.
Okay, so we're going to take this out and pat it dry. This was about 35, I think, centimeters when I cut it. I'm going to stretch it. I'm going to wrap it around my thumb. We have a video on this actually on in our Orfit Academy course. So you wrap it around the thumb on the radial side. You go behind the arm, behind the hand, the front of the hand, and then through the web space, and then cover up the thenar muscles. Make sure the hand is in a nice functional position. And you have to work very quickly on this one, which is why I think it's a little bit of a challenge, but it makes a very nice lightweight orthosis. It's only overlapping on the thumb. Here it's just one layer, so it's not very thick at all. And it's very supportive for the thumb, for arthritis or a sprain. And then we are going to cut it carefully to open it. I'm just going to do a little trimming where it's a little rough to allow for IP flexion. And then I'm going to trim here so we can put a strap. So this allows for IP flexion, and we just need a strap to close it. For the strap, we'll take a piece of loop and a piece of hook. I'm going to use the heat gun to heat up the material directly. And I'm going to stick my loop directly into the material. That's my loop. I can put that directly into the material. For the hook, we're going to also heat that side up. But I need to heat up the material and the hook. And then we do need to use our scraps to reinforce the hook, because it will not stick without some reinforcement. So I'm just going to hook. If you just do it on two sides, these little scraps of material on two sides, your hook will stay. So that's easy. And they're a very quick orthosis for the thumb. I like to reinforce this one too. So I'm gonna always take a little bit. It's worth taking some reinforcement. It's worth the time to make sure the straps don't come off. And just sometimes if a corner comes open, we'll just use the heat gun to get that to seal. So you can always correct anything that didn't stick. Okay, so this is a lightweight thumb orthosis, really perfect for somebody with a little thumb pain, arthritis.
Okay, we have some questions, Debbie.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Como dice Debbie, esta es una órtesis muy liviana para personas que sufren de dolor crónico y es muy ergonómica. Bueno, preguntas. How long does the material last? I mean,
these orthoses, all of our material and orthoses, we really guarantee for rehabilitation purposes. So 3 to 6 months, that's really what an orthosis is designed for. And these probably will last longer as long as the patient takes care of it and doesn't leave it in very hot temperatures, or doesn't, keeps it in a safe place and not in their car on a hot day. All of our materials are designed for rehabilitation, which is really 3 to 6 months duration. But many of our orthoses, if you make them with our materials, they will last longer, but it's going to depend on the patients taking care of them.
Okay, let me translate. Bueno, le estoy preguntando a Debbie que cuánto dura este material o cuánto dura la férula con este material. Ella me dice que como este material es para propósitos de rehabilitación, se supone que un proceso de rehabilitación puede llegar hasta 3 a 6 meses, por ende este material puede durar hasta 6 meses, inclusive hasta mucho, mucho más. Hay que tener en cuenta que no se puede exponer en superficies o donde la luz o el calor esté muy directo, como por ejemplo dejar una férula dentro del carro con una temperatura muy alta. Eso no se aconseja, pero en términos generales, pues la durabilidad es muy, muy alta. Debbie, I have another question.
Yes.
Somebody is asking if this material it could be stitched with the thermoplastic, with a regular thermoplastic. I mean, it is possible to use it.
Will it stick?
Or mix it, yeah, with a regular.
Yes, you can definitely mix it. All thermoplastic materials can be stuck to each other if you remove the coating and use the heat gun, or if they're at the same temperature. So you can definitely use Orficast with your sheet material, maybe to create finger separators or to put a layer together to make a little bit more rigid. Or yes, you could definitely add this to a different orthosis or add sheet material to it to add rigidity, for sure.
Le estaba preguntando a Debbie que si este material de Orficast puede ser combinado o se puede pegar con el termoplástico tradicional. Ella dice que sí, que todos estos materiales pueden ser combinados o pueden juntarse unos con otros. En el caso de Orficast puede funcionar muy bien para hacer accesorios o hacer algún tipo de villas que se peguen en la férula que está elaborada con un termoplástico regular. Es perfecto. Entonces, que sí se puede.
I just want to take a minute to show what you can do with the Orficast more, if you don't mind. If you are selling the Orficast more, with these 15 centimeters, you can easily make like longer orthoses. Okay, this is long opponents. You could make a wrist orthosis. This is out of the 15 centimeters with our 2 centimeter Orficast more stuck together. So it's very strong, very rigid, but just a lighter weight version. You can make an ulnar gutter out of the Orficast more. This is the 15 centimeter Orficast more. This is for a metacarpal fracture. Or you can buy our brand new 30 centimeter and make an elbow orthosis. So it's fairly strong, but it's just lightweight and very airy, very, you can actually see light through it. See, you can see the light through it. So it means air is getting through it. So it's very comfortable it doesn't feel like plastic. And so it's a really nice product. And of course you can make a hand-based ulnar gutter, or a very, very quick thumb orthosis. So this is made out of the Orficast more, and this is just a much quicker version of what I just showed you. Okay. So many options with the Orficast more.
Okay.
Showed 4 splints with the Orficast 3 centimeters, the thumb with the Orficast 6 centimeter. I'm just going to quickly show the anti-claw out of the 6 centimeter.
Okay,
By the way, you get 3 meters in each box, so you have a lot of material.
okay.
Go ahead.
Ahora vamos a hacer una órtesis antigarra de 6 centímetros. Ya llevamos 4 férulas o 4 tipos de férulas de 3 centímetros y una de órtesis para pulgar de 6 centímetros y vamos a hacer la última que es órtesis antigarra.
So to prevent clawing, so the patient is clawing because there's a loss of the ulnar nerve, which prevents MP flexion. So instead of flexing, the fingers go into the claw position. So we're going to take a piece of about 30 centimeter. I'm going to fold it in thirds and then put the middle over the ulnar digits and make a kind of figure of 8 with a cross in the palm, and I'll be able to bring the fingers into MP flexion. It's hard to see what the camera is showing, so let me see if I can show you a sample of this. Here is a sample of what this will look like with the strap. So that's what the finished orthosis will look like to prevent clawing. So let's show you how to make it. So we'll take out our material. Pat it dry. You still want to leave these materials fairly wet and hot. If you make them dry, you won't be able to work with it anymore. So I just pat it dry. Find the middle. The middle goes over the ulnar digits. I do in the palm, I do a kind of a cross. This comes through the first web space. This comes around the 5th metacarpal. And I can just pinch those together. Okay, in the palm, I just want to make sure those are pinched together as well, so they don't take up a lot of room. And then make sure that MPs are in flexion at the MCP joints. And then pull this down towards the wrist. And then we can actually cut this. And let it harden. So this should come towards the wrist. It shouldn't be near the knuckles at all. There should be distance between this layer and this layer. This layer should come up to the PIP joints. The fingers should be able to flex. But the patient should not be able to hyperextend. We can slide it off and then we can trim so it looks nice. You can either leave it closed or open with a strap. Either way. Just going to trim a little bit more. There, so this is how it goes on. And that is the ulnar, anti-ulnar claw orthosis designed to prevent clawing. Patient is totally functional, can do a lot with this. Okay, are there any final questions?
Okay, Debbie, yeah. Once the splint is made, it is possible to redo it. I mean, to redo or to.
Sometimes, yes. Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on what you've done. So if you've cut it and then you try to redo it, you can only like redo certain parts of it. The material can be reused. It depends on what you did to the material. If you rolled it, you can't unroll it. If you folded it, you can't unfold it. But if you wanted to do this again, it is possible to maybe take this part, open it, and make it a little tighter. But but it depends on what you've really done with the material. Once you've squeezed it, you can't open it. There's no coating on it.